We can just hold it down. Let's see, I'm Dave Houston, and this is my lovely wife next to me, but I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Becky Houston.
Steve Steinberg.
Can you pep on it?
Steve Steinberg.
There you go.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Steve.
Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we'll get
That's enough, man.
back.
Don't give me no crap.
A lot of folks call me Gumby, and good question. It's my wife and I were with Young Life for 15 years or so, and which is an outreach ministry to high school kids. And then that name sort of developed during that time. And then for the last 13 years, I've been in the marketplace. So we were in full-time ministry, and the last 13 years we've been in the marketplace. And in fact, my offices are connected to this. Metro Radio is my company next door. Yeah, and Sonny is one of our star employees, by the way, star. Get to put the stars up. Anyway, a blessing. She's a blessing. And that's kind of, and we've got Becky and I have we've got 5 kids, 1 with the Lord and 4 with us that we get to care for here on this earth, and they range from a freshman in college. Actually, I guess she just finished her freshman year, down to 2nd grade. So a gamut. 3 of them were here with us tonight, so today. So anyway.
Dave and I met in Young Life. We were both volunteer leaders for Young Life, and we met at a camp up in the Adirondacks. I came from a large family. That's a big part of my story. I have 6 sisters and no brothers, and came to know the Lord and accepted Him when I was very little, 7 years old, and just have a neat history of faith in my family, and just have always loved the excitement of walking with Jesus. And that is what I think drew up me, and probably Dave as well, to the ministry of Young Life, which is it's always about bigger and better, and having a great time and sharing the love of Jesus with kids. And so that was a big part of our story. And then I would say about 14 years ago, we were still on staff with Young Life, but I think we both started having significant encounters with the Lord, and this is a big part of my story, that when our 3rd child was born, I remember being up in the middle of the night, and we were doing ministry, and there was just a lot, and there were people in and out of our house, and leaders, and it was all the time, and I remember the Lord just kind of visiting me at night, and I remember saying to Him, "You say in your word that you came and you come to give us life and life to the full. And this is not full with you. It's full with all this other stuff, but it's not full of you." And I knew the Lord was getting at my heart, and He said to me, I felt right in my spirit, He said, "Becky, do you love me?" And I knew at that moment, having this teeny tiny little baby boy and 2 other girls, daughters that I have to take care of, that I couldn't answer that question. Yes, I could say, yeah, I love you, but I don't think I love you more than them, or all the other things that in this life. And that began a journey for me of really deciding what I think in ministry we had done was put the Great Commission before the greatest commandment. And that really was a paradigm shift for me, and then became for us in our marriage a big part of God starting to shift some things in our lives. And so that really began my journey of going into the secret place with the Lord, and it has been my favorite place, and it's been an incredible journey.
Well, this is my wife Elizabeth right over here, my buddy. And we have 2 kids. And I don't remember how long we've known you guys, but it's been a while, and I don't actually remember exactly how we met. But we've had this cool parallel in our families, in our lives, where Dave and I connect really well, and Elizabeth and Becky connect really well, and then our kids You know, like that's those two right there. Knox is their youngest, Jacob is our youngest, and they're the exact same age. And we have a 17-year-old daughter, Abby, who's exactly the same age as Corey, and they get along great. So there's just been these cool sort of parallel paths for our families, it seems like. So we've always had this idea that we were, you know, going to walk out life with them in some way, you know, in some capacity. So anyway, I started getting involved in.
I think that was a big piece of realizing, oh,
Yeah, that's right. We served on a private Christian school board of directors together, and it was a how would you describe that board? It was mostly sort of Reformed Presbyterian, and
They didn't know what to do with us.
you know, whatever. We're not judging, but it was just a different expression than where we were with the Lord, and because we're, you know, House of Prayer guys, and so I didn't know that about Dave, but I was at like a burn service one night, and I opened my eyes, and Dave's standing next to me, and it shocked me.
How you
It was
doing?
like the last, you know, one of the last people you would expect to see at a burn service was somebody that I was in my mind I was associating with sort of this Reformed Presbyterian expression. So, and he just says to me, he says, I need to share with you what the Lord is telling me about a house of prayer. And so, like, we got together within a couple of days and had lunch, and you know, sort of the rest is history that they'll tell. Really, the majority of this story is their history and their journey into this. I have a couple of, like, you know, key moments in history, maybe like 2 moments where there was, you know, something that I contributed to it, or the Lord used me in that way. But so, as I was getting involved in House of Prayer stuff, the Lord really started speaking to me about. I don't even know the words to use, but about rallying them together and about bringing them together, where it wasn't just these sort of individual little clans. It was, I guess the picture in my head is, I don't know if you saw Avatar, but remember where all the clans start coming together, you know, to fight the big evil empire or whatever. And that's sort of the picture that was always in my head, was all these clans sort of joining forces. And I really felt driven by that picture to start to connect different groups, which is how I met Yushik. I met Yushik through, I remember, I think through Joanne and Lisa, when over at Open Door. And so that was all part of that journey of just wanting to find leaders of houses of prayer and praying groups and burns and all that, and just getting them together to start to work in a sort of the bigger context of the region. So that's it.
Sure. Well,
Your story.
so fast forward and rewind, a combo. It's 2009, and the Lord had been pressing on my heart Acts 2:42 through 47, just constantly. And we had several years prior we had left full-time ministry, and but some of our dear friends, Louis and Jill Cataldo, were now on staff at IHOP and International House of Prayer. And so we made a few journeys out to IHOP, and I guess finally found a home. Can we all sing together? And you know, and it's like, okay, this really resonates. And so it was then, and then we made several other trips out there, and then our kids went to Awakening teen camps, and you know, on and on and on. But so that period from 2009 on, the Lord continued to press on my heart. Start a prayer room, Northern Virginia. Start a prayer room, Northern Virginia. And when we came, actually, from 2009 to 2010 or so, I pulled the ostrich, as I just buried my head in the sand. I'm not doing that, you know. We were out in full-time ministry already, Lord. We're in the workplace. I'm a Joseph, you know, and you know. Anyway, so I wrote a date so I'd know. Okay, so 2010, late 2010, the Lord wakes me up in the middle of the night and shows me this pillar from the sky to the ground, and out of one side are little kind of pilot lights, and they're not really, they're just very small, tiny little pilot lights to the left. To the right, he says that, so to the left is little pilot lights, and he says, and this is like, middle of the night, he says, this is what it is if you don't follow me. And then he has my gaze turned to the right side of this pillar, and it's just this inferno blaze, flame-throwing. I had to look away, it was so brilliant, and he says, this is what it's like if you follow me. And meanwhile, I'd been running with the Lord for years, and gave my life to the Lord a long time back, but he says, this is what it's like if you follow me. Now gather my people and pray. And he gives me 1 Chronicles 23 through 25, building the tabernacle, as well as, again, hits me with Acts 2, 42 through 47. And, teaching, fellowship, breaking of bread, prayer. So then I said, okay, it's time. Gather my people and pray. I hear you. In fact, I see you. So there was a handful of prophetic experiences like that that were just kind of wild. And so now we fast forward to February 2011. And the Lord actually showed me now where NOVAHOP was supposed to be. And he led me here. But as he did, my company had space next door. So we opened the mini version of NOVAHOP next door where the other ministry, the Young Life is, their offices, and we have a small little prayer room there. And so we built it out, and it's very nice, but only houses a handful of people. And the Lord says, and then all of this was just empty, unconstructed, empty spaces. And the Lord says, no, you're to have a larger corporate worship center, a place where you can gather my people and pray. So I call the owner of the building, who I know, and I said, the space next door, and he cuts me off and says, oh, it's already been leased. Because he had kind of dropped the hint that it may have been available, a couple months back. Anyway, so he says, "Oh, it's been leased," and I said, "No, Jay, you don't understand." He knows the Lord. I said, "Jay, the Lord has told me that we're supposed to have NOVAHOP is supposed to have that space. This is where we are to be. I'm coming to your office tomorrow morning," and he's like, "That you don't understand. It's been leased. I have a contract." And I said, "I'll see you tomorrow morning." I show up at his office in Centerville, and he says, "It's you won't believe this, but I just got off the phone with the folks who had signed a lease and were taking the space, and they've just dropped out." And I said, I know. Here's the deposit for the space. And so that was another cool thing. And as I got all of that, it was funny, I was standing with my face against that wall right there, coming from the now Young Life offices, because the Lord just said, "Walk up and lean against that wall," and I did, and I was just standing there for hours. I was like, "This is a little odd, but okay, I'm here, I'm listening." And a big thing for me is, listen, pray, listen, and then take a step of faith. So that's now the building came to play, and we're here, and then. A couple other just neat little things that were quick along the way. Well, I guess they were pretty major, but now it's April 2011, and we were in the midst of building NOVAHOP, and Becky and I go to the prayer furnace down in Fredericksburg, and we were getting together also with Benjamin Atkinson, who's a dear friend. who's on staff with IHOP, and Chauncey Hutter, who runs the Business House of Prayer in Charlottesville. So, they're coming later. So we're just there worshiping, and as we're worshiping, the Lord tells me and gives me this he says, "I'm going to give you chairs." And I said, I really, Lord, that's neat. I'm here I just want to worship you. But you're going to give me chairs. This is a little bit of a distraction. I really just want to get with you. Meanwhile, he's downloading. And he said, no, you don't understand. They're not just any kind of chairs. They're chairs that are soft. First off, they're blue. They're soft on the backs and the cushions. And I go, okay, all right, great. This is awesome. I'm not sure. Okay, how many? What is it? But I really just want to worship you and get with you. So the time goes on. I kind of just filed that away, and an hour later, Chauncey and Benjamin show, and the Fredericksburg House of Prayer or the Prayer Furnace, I should say, is what they call it, had been on this college tour where they were all over. Anyway, so they come and they pulled me aside and they were highlighting a couple things that they'd watched the Lord do and just and where Jesus had just literally shown up. I mean, it was just awesome stuff. And Chauncey kind of stops things in the middle and he goes, he said, "This might sound crazy," and he calls me Gumby. But Gumby, I'm supposed to give you chairs, and I said, that doesn't sound nuts at all, because just about 30 minutes ago, the Lord said He was going to give me chairs. And I said, Chauncey, they're not just any kind of chairs. They're blue, and they're soft, cushioned on the back and on the seats. And he said, how did you know? They look like this. And he pulls a picture of his iPhone up, and he shows me a picture of just like the stack of chairs. So, anyway, so that was another experience. So then we
interject
yes.
one thing on that portion with the chairs. The chair that happened in April. We did not get this space until October. It wasn't until the fall. So I'm thinking, what in the world are we going to do with these chairs? There's like 100 chairs. Where are we putting said chairs? So those are the kinds of things that we would laugh at, because we were like, all right, I guess we got chairs now. Where are we going to house them? So just kind of the fun little things that the Lord did.
So then fast forwarding September 2011, where my offices used to be in Manassas. So I'm driving back, and again, it's September 2011 in Northern Virginia. It's a little warm. I'm driving back, and I notice a snowplow, and before I'd gotten on 66, and I thought, that's kind of odd, a snowplow. This is a little unusual, and I get a little ways down the road right before I'm about to get on 66 and come back up this direction, and the Lord shows me another one, and I thought, 2 snowplows. But it's September. Why would you have a snowplow on your truck at this point? So, and it was one of those, where the Lord kind of nudges you and shows you something and shows you something, and then so I get on 66, and sure enough, what goes by me is this large like VDOT truck with a snowplow on it, and I thought, okay, that's 3. Are you trying to say something? And then of course I gave the, all right, you show me one more snowplow and I'll listen. Well, so and I said, I'm literally, Lord, I'm open to hearing you. I want to hear you. And so so I'm driving from Manassas back up to here, and I'm about to get off Route 50 onto Route 50 here to come back to the office the other office that we already had built out next door. And as I'm about to pull off, going the other direction, is this really old, beat up truck with a snowplow on it, and it goes by me, and it was a huge semi that was kind of in the way, and I was about to pull off, and I thought, there's no, okay, where's this, is there a fourth? And sure enough, this semi, starts speeding up, and there it was, and then I pull off the highway, and then the Lord just downloads, and I basically had to pull into here and just receive, and he said, this snowplow, this old beat up snowplow, this old truck and beat up snowplow, it's in a sense, it's somewhat degree, it's you. You are, this snowplow is going to be going through this wheat field and making a perfect path through this, this gorgeous, huge, giant wheat field. And people are going to be getting on this path. They're literally going to be getting on this path, and because it's been created, they're not following the snowplow. They're not following the old beat-up truck. They're getting on this path because it has been cleared and made. And then at that point, he said, you will not be running NOVAHOP. Someone is coming. Someone is coming to run NOVAHOP. And so again, that's September 2011. And from then, he continues to tell me, someone is coming to run NOVAHOP. So now it's December 2011, the eve of Hanukkah, which we didn't really even realize, and we opened NOVAHOP's doors, and now as a prayer room, and 50, 60 people were here, for that eve and launch, and we, and from then on, every Monday and eventually Monday and Thursday nights, the prayer room's open, and anywhere from 10 to 40 people are showing up for the whole next year, for 2012. But the whole time, the Lord's telling me, someone's coming, as well as that I'm not to take a front, I'm not to speak, I'm not to get up front and share, I'm not to, because all I was in ministry former was the guy who was up front speaking and sharing, but Becky was going to be the mouthpiece. So that was a cool thing, to watch the Lord work that way. And so then and then this is the last piece. So we're meeting for the whole year, and then during the latter part of the 2012, or just during that time, the Lord keeps, he gives me a vision of these double doors opening, and these get a little choked up just talking about it. And he keeps saying the doors are going to be open. These are huge. There's two giant doors, and they're open doors, and they're open doors, and he just keeps hammering me with the doors are opening. They're going to be open doors. Yeah, you guys know the piece from there, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't have any idea what this means, but they're going to be open doors, and coupled with that is constantly someone is coming. I have someone for I'm sorry, for NOVAHOP that is going to be running and leading NOVAHOP besides me, the Lord. The Lord just kept saying, besides me, I've got a human in mind. Who knew it was going to be an attractive bearded Asian man? But so with that, then Steve, who was part of our original kind of leadership team, we had about 5 or 6 of us that were on this NOVAHOP leadership team. From there, he introduces, that's just maybe where you can fill it in.
Sure. Well, so yeah, I was a part of this house of prayer, And but I was also doing something more regionally, where I was just sort of creating a relationship between a lot of praying group, house of prayer leaders. So I was just trying to steward this bigger relationship thing happening in the house of prayer community in the region. And so, you know, Yushik and I would get together. We always eat Mexican food together, don't we? We'd get together, and I don't remember the name of that place, but it was a good restaurant. And we just share with each other and just getting to know each other, and we just had like an instant brother thing going on. And so anyway, he starts telling me during the course of our relationship over a year or two at that point, about the Lord is calling him into house of prayer, like a full-time house of prayer ministry. And I already knew Yushik from the Tuesday night service at Open Door. And when at one point he said he was going to sort of step away, I don't want to give your story, but step away from the leadership of Open Door and focus specifically on this house of prayer. And in my sort of regional type hat, I even remember saying this, I said, but what about NOVAHOP? It's so close and you're going to end up competing with each other. Like that was a concern of mine, thinking more regionally, and how do we cooperate and collaborate and not compete? And Yushik was like, I'm doing what the Lord is telling me to do. And I was like, well, can't argue with that. So anyway, originally, Yushik's group was gonna sort of be based out of Open Door. So, you know, there's probably a passage of 2 months or so, and he calls me and says, we're not gonna be based out of Open Door. We've got this group, we're ready to roll, we're ready to go here. And do you know anywhere that we can, just some space we can use for a little while, maybe? And immediately I'm like, now I get it. Now I understand. Like here we were, the Lord was sort of saying, gather my people, and I'm thinking community and all this stuff, and it never occurred to me these cool sort of side benefits that would come, like this sort of thing. So I said, I know exactly where you can go. And so I called Dave, and I think the three of us got together pretty quickly, and it was like, you know, here's this space that's a house of prayer that frankly at that point, I thought, I was a little concerned. I was like, you know, we're not really building momentum. It was sort of like it had plateaued in a way. We were just going to be faithful through that. It didn't matter to us. We were going to be faithful through that. But all of a sudden we had this space that was designed as a house of prayer, and we have a guy with this community that needed a place to be, and I was like, this is so the Lord. So just sort of introduced these guys, and they ran with it, and that's sort of, and Dave was so, I mean.
Even prior to that, you remember the piece of the Open Door? Just our Open Door conversation, do you remember that?
Yeah. But, well, different than what the one you already said?
No, I mean.
No, maybe I don't remember.
Where at one point Steve, I was talking to him about where the Lord had said someone's coming, and maybe I think at that point maybe I shared the open doors, and you said something. I just remember you going, well, oh no, I asked you, well, what's the name of this? What's the name of the church he's involved with, or this thing? And you said, well, it's Open Door, it's Presbyterian. I was like,
well, yeah, that's right, because when I called Dave, I told Yushik, I said, I think I've got it. I think this is so perfect. And I called Dave, and I'm telling him about it, but I'm not using the name Open Door because that's not going to be significant to him. So yeah, he finally asked me, and I was like, well, it's Open Door Presbyterian Church. He's like, oh, okay, now it's all making sense. So anyway, that was cool. And Dave and Becky, this is what you don't see this outside of people in the Lord. But they basically said, here's the keys to the car, go for it. It's yours. And you don't see that kind of grace outside of a relationship with the Lord. Like that was just, I think that just, I mean, it really just blew me away. You know, the graciousness and the obedience, and after they really poured a lot of resources and all of the et cetera, and heart and effort, and so that was really a beautiful thing. I thought that was really cool.
I'll jump in right there. That's where I was like, I remember remarking to all of our our team. I was like, I don't know what to make of this man Dave and the Houstons, because it seems too good to be true. And it's like, I was like, at first I was like, why don't we get to know each other first, But then it's just like, hey, here it is. God, He told me to do this and this, and then I was just like, I just didn't know like how to take that, because normally it's like, wow, but it was just the complete opposite. It was like, I've done all the work, I've set it all up, and here it is. So that's very like opposite, just how the world works. Even in a lot of churches, that's not how it works. And so I was astounded, actually. And so I was like, like maybe we should get to know each other. So it had to be the Lord. And we just honor you for the both of you. It's not just Dave, it's both of you for having toiled in that way.
One of the things that I just wanted to share, what was going on for me in all of this process, is that I would say that in our marriage, I've always been the one that has been the worrier when it comes to the cost of anything, not just financially. Like, what's this going to cost? What's it going to take? And he is the one who's like, well, the Lord said do it, so I'm just going to go. But in the meantime, in the spring when all this was happening, he had said to me, but initially you're going to lead this. And I was like, I haven't even gotten a word from the Lord that I'm going to lead this. So I'm not taking your word until I hear His word. So in July, this was being built out. We didn't have this space yet, but that was being built out. And I finally came to terms with the fact that this was actually going to happen. I still didn't know what my part was, but I came to terms with the fact that we were opening a prayer room. And my best friend and I had kind of been on this journey. We've done ministry together for years, and we've prayed together for lots of different ministries and been in different, just done a lot together. And so anyway, Dave said one night, can I take you over and look at the space? And it wasn't, it was still just bare walls and that kind of stuff. And he brought me into that room, and I said, can we just be quiet for a minute? I just need to listen. What's the Lord saying to me about this? And I'll never forget, I turned around, and I'm very visual. God speaks to me through nature in huge ways. And I looked out the window, and directly out the window, if you look across the street, you see the cross at the top of a church. But not a lot of people would notice that. And I knew that was for me. And I said, Dave, do you see that? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, that cross across the street. And we walked into all the other offices. You cannot see it from the other offices. You can only see it from this room and from that room. And I knew at that moment the Lord was saying, I'm doing this. This is about me. You guys are just, if you'll work with me, I'll let you be a part of it, but this is about me and what I'm doing here. And I remember being struck at watching cars go by back and forth over 66 and thinking, this city is we are outside the most powerful city in the world. What a place for us to be praying for those people that go back and forth day in and day out, and their involvement in our country and who they are. And so all of a sudden I felt this stirring. And so I said, Dave, would you pray over me? And he prayed. No earthly idea what he prayed, but I heard this from the Lord, and he will speak to me like this often. He usually gives me one word. A lot of times he'll give me one word, and he said, declare. And I thought, okay, I'm supposed to declare. I guess I'm supposed to declare something. So I said, what suite are we in? And he said 405. And I got down to the truck afterwards, and I looked up Psalm 40, verse 5. And this is what it says. And this is, to me, a big part of what we are to do in this place. And it is especially for me that I am to do. Many, O Lord my God, are the wonders you have done, The things you planned for us, no one can recount to you. Were I to speak and tell of them, they would be too many to declare. And I knew at that moment that was what the Lord was saying to me, that you will declare my wonders in this place. That will be what you will do here. And from that moment on, when we had kind of finally said that we were opening this prayer room, we started getting phone calls from friends. Would you and Barb pray over us? Could we be like the first people in the prayer room? So there was a lot of one-on-one, two-on-one prayer that went on for a long time in the beginning initially as we were developing this. And we had a few friends who, kind of funny, didn't even know them very well, but through a friend of a friend, this gal had said, I'm having visions of what a prayer room is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to be decorated. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So anyway, we had this gal come in, and she had done just some beautiful, beautiful things for us and for that prayer room. And we knew that that was initially just God's part of using the body of Christ to help prepare this place. And so anyway, one of the things I want to add into it, that the night of our opening, I think we had been meeting. There were probably 4 or 5 of us that had met, and we made the decision. And Steve, in his involvement, had a lot of different, worship leaders and people that we resourced. And I really want to honor them, because for a full year, this was volunteer run. Jeff and Laisla Nasta, who have been very involved in the prayer movement in Northern Virginia, were here every Monday night. They were amazing and were just such faithful servants. We had volunteers here all the time doing worship. Some nights there were 5 of us in here, but it was so beautiful to see how the Lord sustained it and how He had planned for it. So the night that we opened was December 20th, 2011. And I'm telling you, I was as dumb as anything. I had no clue it was Eve of Hanukkah. Well, I didn't know so many people in the prayer movement really paid attention to those things. And so the night that we opened, people just kept coming through the door, and I literally looked at my best friend and looked at Dave, and I'm like, where are they coming from? And how did people hear about this? And so it was just so beautiful, because I think it brought together regionally what's going on. You had Manassas, you had Loudoun, we had some DC people, we had Maryland people, George Mason, and it was neat because it was at Christmas time. All of the prayer room folks in the college movement were here. We had a huge group from Tech here. We had a huge group from CNU. It was beautiful, the group of people that came together on that night. And our good friends who've really become good friends of mine, John and Jolie Hamill, they live in Frederick, Maryland, and they were married on the eve of Hanukkah. And so when they had found out that a prayer room was opening on the eve of Hanukkah, they knew they were supposed to come. And they showed up, prayed this beautiful blessing over the place, and it was kind of a wild thing because they, we ended up knowing them through another Young Life connection, which was just really wild. And so they've been very involved. They are now in DC and very involved in what's going on with Matt Lockett and Justice House of Prayer, and also Jason Hershey. So they've been a real gift. So really what God had been giving Steve on a regional level all came together that night for all of us to go, this was exactly what God said He was doing. This is what He is doing. And you guys are all a part of that.
There's one other key component that I think is important to share. I think everybody should know this about this place, and I'm not speaking from myself, from the Lord really. A significant call on this place, on this group, and so this was I don't know when, probably 2 years ago or so. We were going to start a prayer time here at, I don't know if it was 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever it was, but I had gotten here a little bit early and was sitting out on the curb, out in the parking lot out front. And Jeff and Laisla Nasta were walking in, and I was as far from the door as I am to the sound booth there. That's how close I was from the curb to where they were passing by me. And as they passed by me, and I said, you know, hey, I'll be up in a few minutes, and Laisla was holding the hand of a little kid, maybe like 3 years old or 4 years, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. And I can picture this in my head today. The kid was wearing a polka dot coat, and I mean, I can completely picture it. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I had known the Nastas for a while at that point, but you know how when you pray with people, like you know things about them, but you don't know everything about them. I didn't know the whole story, and I'd never heard them talk about kids, so I didn't know if they had kids, but I was thinking, well, this must be a grandchild. Well, that's cool. And we would bring kids, you know, their kids and our kids came here from time to time. So anyway, I thought, oh, I hadn't heard them talk about kids, but that makes sense, and this is probably a grandchild. And so I came up here a few minutes later, and I come in here, and the sound booth used to be here, and Jeff and Laisla were over here. And I said, hey, where's the little kid? And I could not tell if it was a little boy or a little girl when I saw them walk by me. And I said, well, where's the little kid? And Laisla said, what are you talking about, a little kid? And I said, I just saw you walk in with the little kid. And to me, like, she said, there was no little kid. I don't know what you're talking about. And to the best of my knowledge, I've never had a vision in my life like that. Like we're, you know, I think in my mind, I was thinking, well, if you have, it might be sort of like, you know, airbrushy type of, you know, through a shear or something. It never occurred to me that it would be as real as life, you know. I didn't know that. And so at that moment, the thing was getting ready to start. I was supposed to open in prayer, so I was like, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm going to put this on the shelf for a moment because I've got to, you know, we've got to go forward with this thing. So for whatever reason, now you remember when the disciples at some point, I think they were on a boat or something with Jesus, and they had already seen him multiply the bread and the loaves and the fishes and all that, and it was like, but their hearts had been hardened. They didn't even understand what had happened, you know. And you know, we can be all judgy of them and everything, but you know, we all do that same stuff. So for whatever reason, I put that on the shelf, and I didn't pick it back up for a week until I was there a week later. And I was here in the prayer room, and I was like, oh yeah, what about that kid? That's so weird. Like, I mean, that seems ridiculous. Like, how could I not have just been blown away at that moment? But really, I just sort of put it down for a week. I picked it back up, and I was like, yeah, I never even asked you, what was that kid about? And he spoke to me, and he said, I want you to bring the cause of the children into this house of prayer. And like, I can feel that right now. Like that was, and all of a sudden I started getting revelation about things that have been tangent to this house of prayer. Like, you can't see it because the blinds are closed, but well, you can see it there. But that building right across Route 50 there is one of the premier, it's the training center for the DHS Cybercrime Division. And that is where they train and where they do a lot of the investigation. That's part of this country's frontline work against child exploitation, is right there. And I started having all these pieces come together for me, and I won't go into all of it, but that was significant to me, that the Lord spoke and said, the cause of the children is supposed to be sort of like a cornerstone or a foundation element of what this group is about. And so I share that not just because I feel like that's something that we would never want to lose as a sort of part of the history of this place.
And I just want to piggyback, because on that there were 2 nights that I very specifically remember that we prayed for. One for the breaking of the drugs that were coming in over the border and the cartels and that kind of thing, and then one was for child exploitation. And the next day in the news, huge busts, absolutely huge. One of them, the one that was the drug thing, was just mind-blowing how much that they had uncovered and what was going on. And so I would call Steve, I'm like, you won't believe what I just read in the news, this is, and so it just is such a reminder for all of us that what we are doing here is about kingdom work. It is, and it is impacting what's going on in the natural. It is working, and God's power never stops. And I think when we're praying, sometimes we get in that mode of, this is just what I do, instead of, I'm expecting to see what God is going to do.
do y'all have any other kind of revelatory kind of things? Dave, any others? Steve, Becky? Afterwards, if you would, if you just take a moment just to pray over us. If there are things kind of in the present that the Lord has been giving to you that you'd like to share, feel free to do that as well.
I think that's really the significant points that I wanted to share. I do, just experientially, I grew a lot in this place, like just in walking up, understanding the prophetic maybe, and that I really feel like this kind of community is where we hone those skills and where we need to be bold to test the envelope a little bit about, understanding, deciphering what's the Lord and what's our flesh, and that these are safe places where we can learn some of that stuff. So just about, let me ask for a show of hands. How many of you have ever felt like you had something from the Lord you were supposed to share, and because you questioned whether it was really the Lord or whether it was really you hesitated and missed it? It's probably awfully close to 100%, right? And we all struggle with that, and it's something we struggle with, at least in my own experience and my observation. It's one of those continual things where, you lick it sometimes, and sometimes you miss it, and you just try to do better next time. And this is the kind of setting where you grow in that area. This is exactly the kind of setting where it's safe. You're around people that love you and that you can trust, and that if you miss it sometimes, that's life. That you have to be willing to sometimes make a mistake to really push the edges on what you're able to, the level of revelation you're going to get and the level of impact you're going to have.
One thing is, I was looking through my notes from the last couple of years. It was that I had seen ping 2 or 3 times. It was that NOVAHOP was going to be a safe place for moms and working moms and women, and it was a place where guys, we were going to hear through. Literally hear the voice of the Lord through some women. So be open to listening, fellas. So anyway, that I remember that was one piece, and also that there was in some of my notes there was I'll talk to you about it later, but just a larger and specific amount of space, but larger space. To the tune of a specific number, but larger, and I think obviously the neat thing is you look around and you look around on a Tuesday night. Well, of course, you need larger space, but that was 2 years ago. It's going to need to be larger, and this particular amount of space larger, but so it's out there. Some larger area. Anyway.
No.
No.
Can I pray?
Yeah.
Pray.
If you all would just go down the line and just pray for us, and if we would just be in a place of receiving